Right, welcome back. I'm standing here filling in this little evaluation form that you all received in your packages. And the organizers asked me to ask you to fill this in and then hand it to the little people that will be standing by the door as you exit. And I think one of these questions, which is also good for your own reflection, is the point 16. Please list up the 3 things that you will try to action following today's conference, which will influence your own organizational policy or practice, which is long speak for what will you do? Any ideas you got, that was good. Put them down here and we'll try to share them afterwards. It is important and very useful to show that your municipality is making impact towards your council, your citizens, local businesses and others. And how to best shape and send the right message to appropriate actors will be investigated in this section. Our first speaker is the Partnership Manager for Act on Energy, a UK-based charity dedicated to working with local government, social housing, the National Health Services and communities on a variety of energy issues, ranging from energy poverty through to climate change. And we got to hear more from that, so clap your hands for Rachel Jones.
Right, when we think about the right messages that we give to our communities, we really need to consider about the priorities for our communities. What are those priorities? How do we find out what the priorities are for our communities? Who do they listen to? What benefits might they be looking for? What might prevent our communities from actually taking action on energy efficiency, on climate change? There's a number of ways we can actually do this. One example I've got up here is actually an example of one of the UK local authorities who wanted to look at how they were going to implement a piece of new government policy. The UK government has introduced a number of very new policies over the last sort of 12 months. So the local government put together a questionnaire that went out to their citizens panel to ask them, this piece of policy is going to come forward. What do you think about it? How could we deliver that? This is just one of the ways that we can look at being in touch with our communities, asking them how we're actually going to deliver what we think they need. Also, the other key thing we really need to consider is the audience that we're trying to get messages across to, that we're trying to communicate with. A one-size-fits-all approach doesn't necessarily work. Specifically, if we really want to get across real change and not just the sort of bog-standard energy efficiency measures. So we need to really think about the messages that we ask. The Energy Saving Trust in the UK has conducted quite a lot of research around what we call trigger points for getting people to take action. And this slide just illustrates some of those trigger points with different parts of the community. And for example, there with young couples, the real trigger there is the fact that there's strong commitments to environment and actually delivering works, but actually there's very, very limited capital available. They've got very small budgets to actually undertake energy efficiency works. So perhaps what you'd be looking to do there would be to target them with more low-cost energy efficiency measures. And then looking at the other end of that spectrum, we're looking at what we call the empty nesters in the UK, the older population, where perhaps they're preparing for retirement. And actually their primary interest and the way we'd perhaps get messages across to them would be to look at issues around health and warmth. And I'll explore some of those examples with you over the next few slides. And finally, one of the key things about messages and talking to our communities is about making it personal. It's making it about the person, the individual, their house, their home, their community, the area that they live in. So when we're looking at segmenting an audience, when we're looking at the communities that we work with, what we really need to think about is the sort of messages that can prompt action. So we're talking about saving money messages, the living in a warmer and more comfortable home, avoiding waste. Perhaps it's the green message, living a greener lifestyle. And also considering some of the barriers that might prevent action from taking place. One of the key barriers we find in the UK is that, particularly with the older population, is the thought of actually having people into their home that they don't know. And it's how we overcome these barriers that we really need to consider and look at. So when we look at the different messages that we want to get across to our audiences, we can just look at multiple different themes, but what we do in the UK is look at them in several different message forms. And one of those is to actually talk about warm homes and to use this as a tool for installing energy efficiency measures in people's homes. So in the UK, we have something called excess winter deaths, and we have 25,000 people in the UK die every year from excess winter deaths, and that's predominantly caused from living in cold homes. So one of the key messages that we like to get across in the UK to both health professionals, frontline workers, and to individuals themselves is making sure they recognise the importance between health, energy, and housing. And one of the ways that we do that is to actually target the type of message that we give to those groups of people. There's a campaign in the UK called Winter Warmth Campaign, and this was actually set up by Yorkshire and Humberside, which is in the north of the UK. And they have developed a website. This is a snapshot of their website, where it provides supportive materials for local government, which is readily available to everyone in this room, but predominantly for local governments in the UK, so that they haven't got to redevelop those resources. It's there to share best practice. And what they've developed is a series of tools that are available for professionals, but also that can be used for citizens, for those people that are suffering and living in those cold, damp homes. And an example of this is a leaflet here that's called the Top 10 Tips to Keeping Snug and Warm This Winter. It's for families and individuals to highlight the importance of living in a warm home and the importance of energy efficiency measures to ensure that home's warm. And then on the flip side of that, there's also a leaflet that's specifically for professionals, for frontline staff, for health workers, which actually illustrates to them how to spot the signs of someone that might actually be living in a cold, damp home. So, for example, when they go into that home and that person's wrapped up with lots of clothing, it's a big sign that house is cold. Now, is that cold because it's got poor heating? Is that home cold because the person can't afford to live in that home? And these are the signs that hopefully the frontline staff can pick up on and then refer them on to another agency to ensure that energy efficiency measures take place in that particular home. The other key message that we use a lot in the UK to drive change is the saving money message, and I'm sure many of you use that message in your own homes. As we're all aware, energy prices are increasing, and in the UK, over 19% of households live in what we call fuel poverty or energy poverty. And that means that someone isn't able to afford to heat their home. They're having to spend more than 10% of their income on heating their home. So it makes good sense to use the saving money message as a way of communicating with groups of communities or individuals. And I'll go through a few examples of some campaigns that have taken place across the UK over the last few years to give you an idea of some of the campaigns that we've done there. The first one there, you can see that Ooh Lovely and Cosy Devon, which is a campaign in the southwest of the UK, which uses the whole warmth message to promote energy efficiency, particularly insulation works to people's homes. It's a campaign that offers free loft insulation to all householders living in the county that is Devon. And so far, since that scheme launched, over 10,000 households have taken up insulation measures. And it's been a very targeted campaign, and the local governments that live and work within the county of Devon have actually used very targeted approaches to that campaign. So they've actually segmented their audience by council tax bands, so proportions of different types of housing essentially, and targeted them with slightly different messages to encourage the take-up of energy efficiency measures. Another campaign that's been in operation is about the Switching Off campaign. It's a partnership project with 3 local governments, Warwickshire, Worcestershire and the City of Coventry. So 3 very large sort of county-wide areas. And it was really about delivering those areas' climate change strategies and finding a way to implement some aspects of those strategies. And the reason they chose the Switch It Off campaign was that everyone could get involved, from the local government staff, schools, individuals, everyone could be involved. And it was a week-long campaign promoting switching it off. Really simple campaign. And as you can see, some of the examples there are the marketing tools, which are also readily available by Warwickshire County Council on their website. If you don't wish to develop your own, they are all sat there on their website for others to use. But they set up a lot of different challenges for the communities, whether they be the 3 local authorities who competed against each other to save energy, or there was a family challenge where the families took an energy monitor home, and then through that whole switch it off week, they actually recorded the energy they were using, but also how they felt about thinking about energy and the changes that they were making to try and reduce their energy consumption, but also to switch it off. And some communities came up with some really innovative ideas for the Switch It Off campaign. And one community, all the local restaurants had a dine by candlelight. So it had the romantic feel, but also with the message of switching it off and thinking about how we use our energy. So it was a very low-cost campaign, but very effective. In those 3 areas alone, they estimated that in a 12-month period, £20 million was being spent on essentially wasted energy. So they knew it was an important way to drive forward certain messages. Another campaign, another case study to talk to you about is a case study called Warmer Worcestershire. I have mentioned this to some of you in the past at the previous training day that we had. But essentially it was a local government project to reduce CO2 emissions and energy poverty in the county of Worcestershire, which has a population of about 500,000. It's made up of a county council and 6 district local authorities sit within that. And those 6 district authorities and the county council pooled their resources to fund a thermal flyover, which is the picture illustrated there on the top right. And that thermal flyover was then mapped onto GIS systems so that individual households could log on to the Warmer Worcestershire website and see their home on that website. And if it was red, it was losing heat. If it was green, it wasn't losing heat. Very simple. It had a few flaws with the system, but on the whole, a very simple but effective way to show energy wastage and to promote energy efficiency measures, particularly loft insulation. Now that scheme has evolved, and this sort of was around 2008 that the thermal flyover took place. And then in the UK, the central government changed and we had a removal of what we called national indicators. So local government no longer had to report on its CO2 emissions. So we used the same strong branding, the Warmer Worcestershire branding, and took that forward to actually look at something slightly different and to utilise the health message and actually link it with slightly different messages to have the same effect, particularly the cold weather message. The NHS, as I said earlier, is very conscious of the fact that it costs them £850 million every year tackling illnesses from people living in cold homes. So it's a really important driver to continue promoting the keep warm, insulate your home, improve your energy efficiency, improve your heating systems. So a really good way to drive forward the message and to continue to use that strong Warmer Worcestershire brand. And in last winter, it wasn't particularly cold winter in the UK last year, but we still had over 1,800 telephone calls into the Warmer Worcestershire helpline, and we made 1,600 referrals of householders to loft and cavity wall insulation, which we estimate would probably save of those 1,500 households about £150 a year, which is a significant amount of money each year for those who are on very limited incomes. So it's a win-win for everyone. And finally, another message, the green message, the one that I think most of us are very, very aware of. This is a campaign that was set up in 2007, and it was really about showing people, getting people to feel what it's really like with energy efficiency measures. And essentially, Super Homes is a series, a network of 166 homes where individuals have undertaken energy efficiency measures to achieve carbon savings of between 60 and 80%. They've spent on average between £5,000 and £15,000 on energy efficiency measures. And what they wanted to do as part of the scheme was to promote that to other people, to show people that you can achieve significant changes by undertaking certain energy efficiency measures, from loft cavity wall insulation through to renewable technologies, through to what we call in the UK hard to treat homes, the Victorian properties, which are much more difficult to treat because they come with conservation issues. So it was a really interesting network, and they've got a website as well called Super Homes. If you look at their website, they've actually got examples where they've taken people via video through the home and shown people what they've done to individuals' homes. So a very effective campaign there. And finally, really just to finish off, what's really important about the messages that we give our communities is that it's always about thinking about the person that we're trying to reach at the end. It's about the people as well as the properties that we're trying to have energy efficiency measures taken to. It's about truly understanding the audience that we're trying to reach and what their wants and needs are. And I think some of the real key things there are about making it personal, making it about them, working in partners. I think it's been said a few times throughout today that we can't do this on our own. We can't do it just as a local government on its own. It's about the people and the communities that we work with. And whether that be colleagues through the health service or colleagues in the fire service, it's about working with other organisations that people trust to get to the message to the people that you really want to reach. And I think that will be me for now.
Thank you very much. I'll let you come on stage again in short time. But first, our next speaker. She's the project manager for Energy Cities, and she's coordinating various European projects targeting local authorities in the field of long-term energy strategies, citizen involvement, sustainable districts, and passive houses. Say hello to Kinga Kovacs.
Thank you, Per. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm here today to talk about the importance of networking and the exchange of experience. And I will speak to you about a European project and the activities that are done under this framework. The project is called NetCom, standing for Networking the Covenant of Mayors at national level. It's coordinated by Energy Cities, as Per already introduced us. And the main objective of the project is to make the Covenant of Mayors a success at national level. So it's really focusing on national networking and exchange of experience. And also the main purpose is to prove that networking is really a very powerful instrument, helping really to design and implement local sustainable energy strategies and long-term visions. Within the framework of the project, we have both a strategic focus and an operational focus. On a strategic level, we are focusing on the creation of National Covenant of Mayors clubs in 12 countries and regions, and the creation of national networking platforms around these clubs. I will go into details a bit later. And on an operational level, we focus on capacity building of local authorities on one hand, and on the other hand, of Covenant supporters as the coordinators of these National Covenant of Mayors clubs. So the Covenant of Mayors clubs are coordinated, as I said, by national and regional networks of local authorities that act as a sort of secretary for the clubs. And that are also Covenant of Mayors supporters. The members of the clubs are local authorities that sign to the Covenant of Mayors, but the club is open for any local authorities actually that are considering to sign the covenant or that are just really interested in the Covenant of Mayors and they want to exchange with other local authorities within the same national context. So it's really open to all local authorities. And these clubs involve both the political and the technical dimensions. They organize high-level political meetings and also so targeted to elected representatives and mayors. And also capacity building workshops targeted more to technicians or civil servants. So mainly on innovative financing mechanisms or citizens' involvement, training on how to build up, how to prepare a sustainable energy action plan. And also within the framework of these clubs, we created discussion lists for the club members, because as we heard before, also sometimes one of the main barriers is the language barrier. So it's good to have discussion lists and discussion points that take place in the national language and within the same context. So these were the Covenant of Mayors clubs, and within the project, of course, the local authorities cannot achieve the 3x20 European targets on their own. So around this Covenant of Mayors clubs, we also create dialogue platforms with different categories of stakeholders, professional association, banking and financial institutions, NGOs, universities and research center, other Covenant of Mayors supporters or territorial coordinators, energy agencies, associations of local authorities, and so on. That can join in these dialogue platforms to see what the local authorities really need and to communicate on this. For instance, now one of the major discussions turn around the new funding period, so the cohesion funds and the structural funds, and most of these clubs and covenant dialogue platforms focus now on establishing dialogues with the managing authorities of these funds in the different countries, so that within the new funding period they really take into account the real needs of local authorities within the shaping of these of the priorities of these funds. So within the framework of the project, we created 12 covenant clubs in 10 countries, in Austria, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Poland, Slovakia, Sweden, Bulgaria, Romania, and 2 of them are a bit special because the one in Belgium, it's more focused on Flanders, so it's a region, and the other one is Baltic Sea region, it's covering the Baltic Sea region area, so several countries. Well, just to say that these clubs, I don't have the time to present all of them, but they are, how to say, quite diverse, because of course in these countries, the priorities or the challenges are not really the same. For instance, in Italy, as you know, we have very many signatories, so the focus of the club is not so much into promoting the covenant, but more into giving support to these signatories. So, for instance, the Italian partners, they have prepared something that's called A+CAM. It's competition. It was a sort of award for the best sustainable energy action plans of Italian cities by taking into account different categories, of course, bigger cities, medium-sized cities, or small cities, so that it can give an example for other cities that prepare sustainable energy action plans of what a good sustainable energy action plan is. For instance, of course, in Austria, this will not be the focus because there are few signatories, and the focus is standing more on the promotion of the covenant and how to motivate very advanced municipalities to sign and what's in it for them. Again, another example is in France, for instance, the focus is on the importance of decentralized energy systems, whereas in Sweden this is already existing. So, as I said, the clubs are really very diverse. So yeah, it's you can get into contact with the national coordinator. So why to join these kind of clubs? networking platform. It's firstly to enlarge your vision and exchange with other municipalities, to learn from them, and also to bring in your own experience, share your experience, and also to get actively involved in improving the national frameworks via lobbying and recommendations. And not just belong to a European movement, but also how to translate this movement to a national level. What kind of support can you get from the national level also in implementing these 3x20 European targets? Because the member states are also interested in this dialogue or in this feedback and recommendation from the ground, because they are also legally committed to these targets. And it's also a good opportunity because enthusiasm is needed, really. So even though we are in quite a difficult context now. So as you said, the covenant clubs are open to all signatories or interested municipalities. Also, if you are a supporter or territorial coordinator or another interested stakeholder at national, local, or regional level. And you can find more information on this website. Just to let you know about the next events we organize, we will organize a high-level meeting with a strong political message on the importance of the Covenant of Mayors as a bottom-up process. This will take place in the framework of the Open Days in Brussels in October 2012. Because what we see also is that the Covenant of Mayors really started as a bottom-up process, but sometimes we are losing this dimension. Even we see it reflected in the ceremonies, for instance, in the annual ceremonies where we have many speakers from the European level, but the local authorities are not so well represented. So it's very important to have speakers that represent really the Covenant of Mayors from the ground, so politicians and mayors, and this is why we organized this first high-level meeting. We will organize probably one as a side event to the Covenant of Mayors ceremony, which is not yet confirmed, but probably it will be in February 2013, and another one in Växjö here in Sweden in April 2013. And of course, as I mentioned before, each club is organizing at national level workshops and meetings, both political ones and capacity building ones. So for these ones, you should go onto our webpage into the events category, and you will find them there. And just so that you can see the coordinator for the different countries. So in Austria, it's Klimatbündnis Austria. In France, it's us, Energy Cities. In Germany, it's Climate Alliance. In Italy, it's Alleanza per il Clima. The Netherlands is Klimatverbond. Poland is PNETS, Polish Network Energy Cities. Slovakia is Cita Energo. In Sweden, it's Klimat Komunerna, who are also here, I think. And Bulgaria, Eco Energy, who are also here. And Romania, it's OR, Energy Cities Romania. In Flanders is VVSG, and Baltic Sea region is Union of the Baltic Cities. So if you are interested in these clubs and joining these networking platforms, you are welcome to contact these partners. You will find their contact details on our website.
Thank you so much. I'll talk with you a bit more shortly, but first let's welcome our next. I'm confusing things. You should stay on stage, and you should come up. I'm so sorry. Kinga and Rachel, please join me here on stage. When I read your CV, Kinga, I realized that you're officially a professional networker, and you talked about here sort of enthusiasm is needed. How do you bring on that enthusiasm in a networking process?
Well, what we do within Netcom, for instance, is that we train these national coordinators of the clubs. So we organize trainings for them on marketing skills, innovative facilitation skills for the meetings. I don't know, we also do sort of train the trainer. So we train them on how to train municipalities to do an appropriate sustainable energy action plan. So we really provide this, this support for them, so that then when they coordinate the clubs, they can apply it really on the ground, and also try to bring in this enthusiasm by having the right methods to...
But is it so something we can learn here is maybe that it's just going to create a network and start networking isn't that easy as it might sound from the start. You need that sort of skills.
Yes, definitely. I think yes, because it's the same when you launch a discussion list. In the beginning, it will not work by itself. So you need some facilitation skills in order to get it started. And then, of course, once it's really started, then people just use it and start networking. But in the beginning, the coordinator definitely needs skills.
Sometimes when you talk about networking, it seems like people say, okay, all you need is a room and then glasses of wine and things will solve out. It's maybe not that...
Unfortunately, it's not that easy.
Rachel, you're a professional labeler or packaging woman in the sense that you take things that sounds boring on a paper and make it interesting and appealing, as we saw in your presentation. And I was thinking of something that you chose a new brand name, Warmer Worcestershire, as a brand name, and not the local government initiative. Why is that?
Primarily because it was there's 6 district councils, a county council, the NHS, and it would have been essentially a big load of logos on a piece of paper, rather than actually about it being about the people living in the county of Worcestershire. So to start with, particularly when we first started the campaign, the local authority's brand is very, very strong. So what we did was use the Warmer Worcestershire brand at the top, and then we branded it next to the NHS, which is a very well-known brand. So there was always some recognition from the citizens that they knew what they were getting was recognised and professional, but it helped to build the brand up, and pretty much now it's known by most of the population as Warmer Worcestershire, and it doesn't necessarily need a local authority brand with it.
But how was the process of getting there? Were there people were being questioned because they want their logo up there? And
Yeah, very much so. It's one of those things, because there's lots of partners involved in the project and lots of different funders, and so people want to have, you get a banner like this here, and halfway up there's logos, and it actually, it's not what it's about the message that you're trying to get to people, and it's very easy as organisations to get quite territorial about your brand, but actually what it's about is the citizens ultimately, and it's always remembering that and going back to that, and that's a challenge in its own right, really.
When Acton Energy started, did you have that sort of managing marketing skills already with you? Because you're much of a marketing vehicle, it seems. In a way.
No, but we were actually set up by a district council. We were set up by Stratford-upon-Avon District Council about 15 years ago. So we were set up by a local government to assist essentially in the delivery of some government policy, which was the Home Energy Conservation Act at the time, because the local government didn't know how to deliver it. So they set us up, and then a few years later they let us go so that we could support other local governments, and it's sort of evolved and grown from that, basically.
You said some clever things, among others. It's not about property, it's about the people. And as people, we tend to focus on good examples rather than sort of big, lofty policies. Has you got any good advice in order to get those sort of policies and what they actually mean in real life? Do you do workshops? Do you do brainstorming sessions? How do you sort of translate those lofty goals into something that people can actually understand? Yeah,
workshops and training exercises are fantastic and really useful, but actually one of the useful things is what we're going to do tomorrow is actually is real life examples and the study tours, for want of a better word, to actually show people what it's like to live in a cold, damp home, to make sure people feel what it's really like, or to experience if you're going to be living a new sort of... one of the things one of the local authorities has done in the UK is take passive house designs and build those in the UK, and actually taking local government into those houses so they feel what it's like to actually live in one of those houses. You can't beat that practical feel.
Sort of shatter that sort of strange image of it being boxed houses or with no windows or...
Yes, yeah. What they see on the television is very different to the reality of actually living in that situation.
I encourage you to during the break here talk about your hidden talents, and you were telling me that Zumba exercise is something you learned well over the past few years.
Did I?
And then you also performed it on a local country show to demonstrate your skills, so you can't really qualify for hidden talent anymore. But what message did you want to take across with that sort of being open? Is it again sort of being the leader and walking the talk?
Yeah, I think you do have to a little bit. You do have to, if you, whatever you're talking about, you do have to, walk the talk essentially. And for me, doing the Zumba was very much that recognition that age is marching on, and that I needed to do something about my fitness. So it's you're talking about it, so you need to do it. It's a bit like the joy that is energy efficiency. We talk about it. We need to actually do it and learn by example and show each other.
Kinga, on your CV, I read that you speak Hungarian, Romanian, English, Dutch, French, and has a conversation level in Italian and Spanish. So, I mean, that's very useful when you're networking in different countries. But how do you adopt your language to promote networking building? I mean, you're in different sort of social environments. You're with engineers, and you're with mayors, and you're with sort of... Yes. What are your best advice there?
Of course, you need to, you don't send the same message. And as I said, also according to the countries, that's why the clubs have, let's say, their purpose is adapted to the country. And of course, the message is also adapted. Yeah, if you speak to politicians and elected people, we of course try to focus our message more on longer term visions or visible, tangible things like what was mentioned before, keeping money at home also. And for technicians, we organize, of course, workshops that are very specific on one specific theme and really learning something concretely, how to do something very concretely.
Do you see what would you say would be the difference in messages in various countries? Obviously, the market is different, but could you see there's a change there? If you talk about these things in Germany, for example, compared to in Belgium or in the Netherlands?
Well, of course, in some of the countries, it was also mentioned earlier that some of the countries, let's say, less advanced countries in terms of sustainable energy policies, sometimes people might react as like, okay, this is not possible here. It was possible there, but it's not possible here. So you also need to adapt your message or try to find, sometimes the best is to find another speaker or another mayor or elected representative who really managed this successfully in the same country. That's why also these platforms are really national. So they network in the same national context and then they exchange on the same things. So I think this is also important sometimes to bring in a peer who has really managed something successfully, and then if this message comes from an elected representative, then of course to another elected representative it's perceived in a different way than if it comes from a network of local authorities or from a technician or whatever. So it's also trying to bring in the same type of speakers and just sometimes using the same type of speaker or the same type of person who's inviting, like same level people that are. And
how important is it to sort of focus on hands-on concrete examples? I mean, in this case we have done this and we saved so much. The other way is sort of talk about the big lofty goals we discussed earlier. How important is that hands-on goals?
Well,
hands-on examples, sorry.
Yeah, I think today this is really important because we see that now less and less municipal staff can leave the municipality actually to attend these kind of conferences. So it's very important for them to have something very clear and to learn something really that at the end of the day they go back and they can apply an idea, a method, whatever. So I think today it's really more important than ever because of the crisis and people can't move anymore. So it's very important to have a very specific tool or a very specific message or idea that they can get out of these networking events.
How's that affected your strategy through the fiscal crisis, that municipalities cannot send people off. Well,
Yeah, definitely a big problem. I think in the UK, most local government has got a ban on anyone attending conferences.
no.
So we don't use the word conference. We try to use the word. So we use the word.
The queen of packaging again.
We use the word training. So sometimes that is a way forward, but it's really challenging in the UK at the moment on that, and we've got a lot of significant policy changes on
Is
the
that
whole
a cause for a bigger emphasis on sort of tools, download, and printouts and stuff like that? We saw, or?
Tools, and also actually the whole learning from each other and having. We have a couple of networks. One, we have a carbon action network in the UK, which is made up of officers, and we try to have them regionally so people haven't got to travel so much. The use of sort of telephone conversation, teleconferencing. I have to say the whole webinar thing I think is still a bit of an alien concept in the UK. I think people can't quite get used to that. People like to meet face to face, and I think that's a real challenge when people aren't allowed to attend conferences.
Thank you so much for coming here and sharing. I think we have some gifts coming up, some candy for you. And yes, I think we're...